Ladies and gentlemen, let's move to the third and the final session of the Logistics Conference 2025.
Sustainable logistics practices.
The third session would be conducted under the theme of Sustainable Logistics Practices Incorporating Environmental Responsibility into Supply Chains. This session will be moderated by Commodore Prashant Maso, and the three eminent speakers are lined up for this session. Ladies and gentlemen, may I now kindly invite Commodore Prashant Maso to take the seat as the moderator. And I also request Mr. Pasindu Disanaika, Ms. Amalka Indumini, and Lieutenant Commander Manoj Veeraratna to take their seats beside the moderator. Further, ladies and gentlemen, you can access the virtual question and answering session at the end of the session through scanning the QR codes. Ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant Commander Ruchira Jayawardena will now introduce the moderator of the third session. Over to you, sir.
Chief guests, distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is a privilege to introduce the moderator for our third session, Commodore Maso. Commodore Maso holds a Bachelor of Arts in Defense Studies and Diploma in Diplomacy and World Affairs and Advanced Diploma in Logistics Management, along with the certification in Logistics, Export-Import Procedure and Stores Management, showcasing his expertise in strategic operations and international affairs. With over 30 years of service, he has held key roles including Logistics Officer, Captain Logistics Department, Senior Course Coordinator for the Loan Logistics Management course, and currently serving as the Director, Naval of Foreign Procurement, demonstrating his leadership and dedication. Bringing up vast experience and insight, Commodore Prashant Maso is well equipped to lead this session effectively. Please join me in Prashant Maso. Over to you, sir.
First of all, thank you very much, Lieutenant Jayawardena, for introducing me. Good evening, distinguished guests, panelists, and all attendees. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this third session of Naval and Maritime Academy's Logistics Conference 2025. Today we explore two crucial studies titled The Effects of Logistics and Green Logistic Practices on International Trade in South Asia, a Comparative Analysis, Balancing Environment Responsibility with Economic Viability and Social Equity in Sri Lanka's Sustainable Logistics Practices. The first study of effects of logistics and green logistic practices on international trade in South Asia, a comparative analysis, will be presented by two scholars, and let me introduce them. First, Mr. Pasindu Disanaika is a lecturer in business economics at the Department of Business Economics in the University of Sri Jayawardenepura. He holds a Master of Science in Business Economics and Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, specialized in Business Economics in the University of Sri Jayawardenepura. His research interests focus on international economics, monetary economics, and behavioral economics. And he'll be assisted by Ms. Amalka Indumini, who is an undergraduate of the Department of Business Economics in the University of Sri Jayawardenepura. She is reading the Bachelor of Science in Business Administration at the Department of Business Economics, Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce, University of Sri Jayawardenepura. So I will hand over the phone.
Okay, a very good evening to all of you, distinguished guests, and all the audience and my fellow academics. So we are going to study, we are going to present our paper. So first and foremost, let me thank Sri Lankan Navy for giving us this wonderful opportunity by organizing this wonderful event. So I'm Pasan Disanayaka, a lecturer attached to the Department of Business Economics, University of Sri Jayawardenepura.
So I'm Amalka Indumini, a recent graduate from the University of Sri Jayawardenepura.
So we are going to present a paper titled The Effect of Logistic and Green Logistic Practices on International Trade in South Asian Context, a comparative analysis. Okay, let's move to the topic. So these are the main parts that we are going to discuss in this presentation. So moving on, when it comes to the international trade, there is no any country that we called as self-sufficient. We always engage in exports and imports. If I focus my discussion specifically into exports, I can say that there are a number of factors that impacts to exports. If you take Sri Lanka, there are a number of factors that impacts to enhance our export values or the volume. So among them, logistic performance are very, very important key factor. When it comes to logistic performance, as it is an important factor like mentioned in our keynote speech, which was done by Professor in the morning session, the LPI is measured or calculated by World Bank in order to check the value in respective countries. So the LPI index is calculated based on several contexts as mentioned here. So they basically use custom performance, sometimes they use infrastructure availability, and based on that, the World Bank actually used this index to rank several countries based on the performance of logistics. So moving on, so if I go back to this slide, you can clearly see that in green lines bars, you can see the countries which are highly perform on export. So if I take your attention to the LPI value of those countries, they are really high. So if the LPI is higher, so exports also higher. If the LPIs are lower, you can clearly see in green bars, the exports are also very lower. So most of the developing countries now are focusing on improving the logistic performance. More specifically, sometimes when they are moving with the logistic performance, the traditional logistic performance are sometimes they are, when it comes to the traditional logistic performance, they are not adequate at the current context. You know, the carbon efficiency is very, very timely topic at the current context. In fact, 24% of carbon emission in the world are from the transport sector. So if we focus on logistic performance and the large transport sector, so we need to focus more on emissions as well. In that sense, green logistics come into the account. So now green logistic also a very well-known topic at the context. So green logistic means it's not a new thing. It focuses or concern more about the environment. We know that it's a part of sustainability. It's not covering entire sustainability. However, it covers a part of sustainability. Moving on, we decided to study to identify the effect of logistic performance and green logistic performance on trade, specifically for the exports, and we decided to do this study to the South Asian region. You might be wondering why we choose South Asian region regardless of all other performing regions. So the answer is South Asia, if we take specifically South Asian region, LPI performance or the logistic performance index is comparatively low compared to the other regions. So that we decided to do this study specifically for the South Asian region. So this is kind of a macroeconomic analysis. So the methodology and the findings and recommendation will be presented by Ms. Amalka.
Thank you, sir. Moving to the research methodology, this is the conceptual framework we use to, based on the empirical evidence. The dependent variable is the bilateral export volume of South Asian countries, and we use logistic performance and green logistic performance as the main independent variables. We use logistic performance index to measure the logistic performance, and we created newly created green logistic performance index based on the empirical evidence to measure the green logistic performance. The international trade gravity model was applied with other control variables, and panel data was used, and data were collected from International Trade Center, World Bank, and CEPII gravity database. We considered only 4 major countries in the South Asian region, that were India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, with 30 of their major importers. We considered only 840 observations, and we used the starter to analyze the data. This is the equation we used to analyze the logistic performance index. And then the equation 1 was used to analyze the relationship between logistic performance and international trade, as well as equation 2 was used to analyze the relationship between green logistic performance and international trade. For the time being, I am not going to discuss this in deep manner. So these are the steps we use to analyze the relationship, mainly fixed effect model, random effect model, and feasible generalized least square method. These are the major findings of the study. There are 4 major findings. The first one is the logistic performance of the exporting country has a positive relationship with their export volume. The second one is the logistic performance of the importing country has a positive relationship with the export volume of the exporting country. The third one is the green logistic performance level of the exporting country has a positive relationship with their export volume. Finally, the green logistic performance level of the import has a negative relationship with the export volume of the exporting country. These findings emphasize the complementary role of both traditional logistics and green logistics to enhance trade performance of the South Asian region. These are the main recommendations of the study. The South Asian can use these insights to find their solutions for their problems of stagnant merchandise trade performance, poor logistic performance, and adverse climate change situations. The first one is the government and relevant organizations can enhance their logistic performance by improving logistic infrastructure, promoting high quality logistic services, and integrating advanced technological systems. Further, establishing educational training and programs is also significant to boost custom efficiency and logistic tracking capabilities. Further, encouraging sustainable logistic practices is also an important strategy to reduce the logistic carbon dioxide emissions. As an example, we can reduce shipping emissions by using cleaner fuels and eco-friendly ships or vehicles. Further, we can adapt usage of eco-friendly packaging methods by using recyclable and reusable materials. Not only that, port efficiency can be improved by using electric equipment and smart systems. Further, we can adopt eco-friendly warehousing methods by using solar power, energy-saving lights, and smart storage systems. Not only that, we can build a green brand image for businesses by attracting customers by showing their commitment to sustainability. Further, governments can collect environmental taxes and penalties from businesses that engage in harmful logistic operations. Further, exporters also should consider to do their business practices related to operations by using environmental friendly activities. So let's move South Asia with efficient and sustainable logistics. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pasindu and Ms. Amalka. And now let's move on to the second topic, that's balancing environmental responsibility with economic viability and social equity in Sri Lanka, sustainable logistic practices. And this will be presented by Lieutenant Commander S. Manoj Veeratna, who is a commissioned officer in Sri Lanka Navy and currently following the LLMC course number 9 in Naval and Maritime Academy. He completed his Bachelor of Business Administration degree in University of Peradeniya in Business Finance with a second level upper class in 2016. He has an industrial experience as an audit associate for 2 years. In year 2017, he joined Sri Lanka Navy as a lieutenant for logistic duties and completed his basic training in the renowned Naval and Maritime Academy. He completed his sub-lieutenant technical logistic course in INS Hamla, India in year 2020. Subsequently, he has completed the advanced diploma in logistic and warehouse management from ISMM. He is a chartered member of the Institute of Logistics and Transport and member of Institute of Management. During his naval career, he has held many important appointments in both sea and ashore. Currently, he is following the long logistic management course for the Master of Business Administration in Logistic Management in General Sir John Kotalawala Defence University. Over to you.
Thank you very much, sir. Hope you all know what is this mountain. This is Mount Fuji, which is located in Japan, the most attractive tourism destination in North Pacific region. In last year, the snowfall was delayed by a month after 130 years, but no any proactive or reactive actions by the Japan. Japan is the country where taught us about the sustainable things, especially 5S. But they also changed their strategies. We'll see why. Let's move balancing environmental responsibility with economic viability, social equity in Sri Lanka's sustainable logistic practices. I am Lieutenant Commander Manoj Veeratna from LLMC course number 9. Content of the presentation as flashed on the screen. Elkington in 1997 introduced the bottom line. In his study, primarily he said there are 3 dimensions. The first one is economy, the most important one. The second one is social dimension. The third one is environmental dimensions. But currently we are looking only for social and environmental dimensions only. For the logistics also, we neglect this, the most important economic dimension. Throughout my study, I analyzed the less priority of the economic dimensions. I put this triple bottom line into the iceberg theory. As we show that social dimension and environmental dimensions are above the surface and only we are focusing on these dimensions. But we are heavily neglecting this economic dimension. But in sustainable logistics, that economic dimension is the most priority one. Logistics sector playing a vital role in Sri Lankan economy because our major exports are depending totally on the logistic operation, especially apparel sector. On the other hand, tea, rubber, that all these industries are depending on the power of the logistics. So logistics is playing a vital role in Sri Lankan economy. When it comes to the global level, that United Nations introduced sustainable development goals to their member countries in 2016. But after 6 years, Sri Lankan government introduced their action plan for the according to the sustainable development goals. But it also implemented by the Ministry of Environmental. So it means that they also, in Sri Lankan context, also neglect the most important economic dimension from the sustainability. We also studies that sustainability is only social and environmental. We also neglect this most important economic factor in the sustainable logistics. my research problem is I have identified that in Sri Lankan context, we are neglecting this most important economic dimension, and we are truly focused on environmental factors only. It should not be done because the development and also the sustainability is depend on all these three. Then it means that we need to balance that both three dimensions to get the maximum output from the theory. Apart from that, I have identified that financial constraints and limited financing over the green financing in the sustainable development in Sri Lanka, and also inadequate infrastructure. Though we are in an island, though we are using very poor infrastructure in port operations and all other logistical operations, we are still using that fossil power vehicles power transportation system, and also weak policy enforcement and government gaps, and also technological limitation. We are far behind in the technological adoption in Sri Lankan context, and also that conflict between environmental goals and economic projects. And finally, I have identified slow implementation of national strategies, because that 2030 will be ended by another 5 years, but where we are 99% of the literatures are available with the social and economic, social and environmental factors. Only few research are talking about the priority of the economic factor. In 2016, D. Disanayaka discussed the limited attention to economic sustainability by his research. He has analyzed the number of sustainability reportings in public limited companies, because there is a separate chapter in public limited and private limited companies financial statements for the sustainable reporting. And also that most reports focus on environmental and social indicators. It means that we are neglecting that economic part. And also United Nations Economic and Social Commissioning Asia and Pacific in 2022 highlighted that limited financial capability combined with inadequate infrastructure. That's because of why that most of the foreign investors are looking forward in Sri Lankan context. And also the economic viability remains less prominent. And freight transport sector throughout Sri Lanka is plagued by old infrastructure and heavily using the fossil fuel. And that finally, that K. Medani and others in 2024 highlighted that SLT export industry maintains green supply, because that our users of tea are now demanding green products from us, but we are not incapable to produce green tea to the market. So because of that most of our exporters are trying to develop that green tea from the industry, but they were failed at this moment. I used open desk method to my study, and I studied several literatures available, and I choose 3 main case studies to analyze my study through the wildlife and transportation, migratory birds and green energy, and finally land utilization of Sri Lanka. Stop Meenagaya. In February 19 in this year, the famous train of Batticaloa to Colombo and Colombo to Batticaloa was collided 7 elephants in near Gallo area, and 6 were died. That official and unofficial, most of the social groups are raised at this moment and made the voice to stop this train. But we all know that in Batticaloa and Trincomalee, most of the tourism and logistical operations are done by these trains. But unfortunately, government decided to reschedule all the train times. Now at the daytime, we can't find any train from Trincomalee to Colombo, Batticaloa to Colombo. From my research, I observed that with compared to last year, April, that hotel reservations in Batticaloa area was reduced by 20 to 30%. But because of the social voice, that government finally decided to reschedule, and still those trains are not going on the rail roads. This is that post that heavily shared on the Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, like those kind of social media to reschedule those train times. From my study, I found some that recommendations to those kind of issues, because that Galloya station and the other area is based on three popular that wildlife reservations, that Minneria, Kaudulueva and Hurulueva Eco Park. Those three reservations are that railroads are running through these reservations, and that elephant corridors are here and there. So that Singapore introduced this eco bridge system to their country. They also the small country, and they also having this kind of problem. So we can use this kind of eco bridge to as wildlife corridors in our transportation system, and we can use in this to solve this railway and elephant collision, and also we can extend our highways through the Yala and Wilpattu or whatever things using this kind of eco bridge. The next most important point, that Adani's withdrawal, that Sri Lankan map shows the bird sanctuaries and that migratory birds coming areas throughout the year. So that Adani is the company where located in India, and they were decided to make a 1 billion worth of investment in Sri Lanka to reduce our fossil-based fuel energy, replacing the solar power and also wind turbines. So they initially proposed wind plants in Mana area, and finally at the wind power plants in the Poonarin area. But because of the social problems to save the birds, this project also failed. That finally Adani decided to withdraw his 442 million worth of initial investment from Sri Lanka because of migratory birds. Otherwise, the electricity bill could be get reduced, and also we can go for energy practices in Sri Lanka. This is that based bird, that flamingo bird in somewhere else in Mana. Then finally, that land utilization in Sri Lanka. We know that Sri Lanka is very small country. Out of the entire lands in Sri Lanka, only 33% is allocated for foresting and farming activities. Out of that 33, that only quarter we are using for the farming activities. Rest of 75% is using for the forest activities. With this foresting, we can't go for the development, or we can't go for the sustainable achievements. We do not need to maintain forests. As an example, from Dambullata, Trincomalee, you can witness how many forests are there, but no any commercial crops are growing in this area. So it should not be done, because at the child level also we are planting forests and planting some plants, but we do not go for the commercial plants. To make these things, I have also identified some challenges in Sri Lanka, especially that financial constraints. Sri Lanka is having very less GDP, and we are heavily dependent on loans and grants, and that policy implementation and government gaps is there, because that policies are changing day by day, and that infrastructure deficiencies, especially in port and transportation operations act, and also technological limitations. Finally, that environmental losses, economic trade-offs are there. From my study, I recommend that strength green financing mechanism should be there, and that the government should be taken that power to the make a sustainable development in Sri Lanka in future, and that promote public and private partnership like Adani or some what else. It's utmost important, because Sri Lanka is not incapable to invest that much of money on the green or whatever or sustainable projects in Sri Lanka, and that integrate economic metrics and sustainability reporting also that economic dimensions together with the social and environmental dimensions. And finally, I propose that sustainable freight transport strategy should be achieved, at least that one also should be achieved by 2030 from that SDG goals by the United Nations. I would like to conclude my study with that policy framework exists, but that economic integration is weak, because that SDGs goals are there, action plan is there, but those are not working. And that real world cases show economic gaps. Whatever the things happen because of the social groups that voice that government decided another things, and that infrastructure and financial systems are undeveloped in Sri Lanka, especially in transportation, and need to shift from environmental only focus. Because why I mentioned that sustainability is not merely environment. And finally, that strategic recommendation for advancement should be there. I would like to highlight this development of economic sustainability should be there, effective of green financing model, technological readiness for industry 5.0 industry, because that other countries are using those industry 5.0, and that PPP, public-private partnership, is utmost important to develop. Otherwise, we are still, and future also, we are identified as a developing country. These are the references that I used for my study. Let's balance profit, planet, and people for a sustainable logistics. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Veeratta. And now the forum is open for the question and answer session.
Good evening, sir. I am Major Ashan Sanjeev from Logistics Task Force number 11 of Army School of Logistics. My question goes to the first article regarding green logistics. And there was a recent incident in the our coastal area in the recent past year about where an Indian ship went on fire and caused a great damage to our coastal area. So my question is, at least after that incident, has there been any reforms in the Sri Lankan system of where any incident will not occur, such incident, and where they will have to repay back, because it took a considerable time for the government to to come to a conclusion about that incident. So are there any reforms in the system by now, at least after that incident, regarding green logistics system of the Sri Lanka?
Thank you so much, Officer, for that timely question. So, however, let me tell, basically this study is about the South Asian context. So, basically we wanted to check how this performance index, specifically logistic performance, impacts to trade in a macro level. So, however, if I answer for your question, up to my knowledge, such a decision is not yet taken. So that is the answer. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the two excellent presentations. I have two questions, one for the Navy Lieutenant Commander. I am also kind of an environmentalist, not kind of environmentalist. I try to practice the green, not only the logistic, by walk the talk. In your research, can you tell me how Sri Lanka Navy can contribute to the green logistic principle? Do you have any projects going on at the moment? Working with the private and other industries?
Thank you very much, madam. Actually, in Sri Lankan context, that Sri Lanka Navy is doing a pivotal role in this kind of green practices, because all of our bases are located around the country. It means near the coastal area. For the protection of coastal, especially you can see somewhere else in Colombo, that Gold Face area also, that our Navy people always going and clean those areas. Those kind of programs are in every area of country with comparatively compared with that Clean Sri Lanka project. So those kind of workings are going on, ma'am.
Because I know last I think last 1.5 years, Navy started the mangrove projects with the private industry in the coastal area.
Yes, ma'am.
So there are a lot of interventions happening, but I don't know how far it has been effective. That was the one I want to find.
Yes, ma'am. In that
want to
dockyard
find
doors,
out. Yeah.
dockyard area also, that you can see that at the
Yeah,
entrance of the
yeah.
gate, there was a concept that inside these premises we are using that bicycles that 4 to 5 years ago they have introduced that kind of things also, and that electrical driven carts also there. So that kinds of projects are going on, ma'am.
Thank you. And my second questions regarding the export LPI. I'm working with the MSME and the SMEs in Sri Lanka, mostly rural, men and women. I found a problem. Most of the SMEs and MSMEs, they do not understand the logistic process, right? And did you find any findings, or do you have any idea how you can make aware the process? Because they are struggling to get the export license, right? And therefore, we have a monopoly with the few industries. They buy their products from very cheap, and they are making a lot of project margin. Now, I'm glad in a way we have a now Ministry for Environmental Entrepreneurship, and they have made sure the 3 entities, Seeds and the NEDA, I forgot the other name, now they are working, and they have already established a platform for SMEs to come into the business, and they are with the assistance of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce. Last week they inaugurated the platform. So what I would like to know with your LPI index, what you have found out, especially in the Sri Lankan context, do you think, or do you have found out how you can make the awareness among the category what I have mentioned, especially MSME and SMEs. SMEs are the most productive way contributing to the economic in Sri Lanka. Thank you.
Again, thank you so much for that question. So again, I'm telling you that this is kind of macroeconomic analysis, and we use basically some kind of macroeconomic variables for analyzing this. So beyond that, let me answer for your question, because as the University of Sri Jawadanapura, we have taken necessary steps to bridge those MSMEs and SMEs with these Export Development Board, Chamber of Commerce, and all those institutes. However, like you said, it is very hard for us even to connect them together. For an example, we are organizing a conference like this one at BMICH in order to, with the objective of creating a platform for MSMEs and SMEs to discuss their issues with Export Development Board, Sri Lanka Customs, sometimes with the Chamber of Commerce and all. So they always have a reluctance to join these kind of platforms. They're actually afraid to come for these kind of platforms. So like you said earlier, it's very hard to create a platform. Even EDB is doing a nice job at the moment because they are always trying to enhance Sri Lankan exports. However, from the side of SMEs, they are not taking that responsibility. I mean, they have a role to play in the economy, but unfortunately, most of SMEs are not much educated in that sense. They are not actually they actually wants to export, but they don't want to learn the process of exports. They don't want to follow the process. They always feel like the process is more expensive and they can't afford it. So that there is a gap. Hopefully, we expect that the government and the necessary, the relevant authorities will address it soon. Thank you.
I have a question for the 2 presenters. Now, have you come across, you specifically studied about South Asian region, greenwashing is very famous. So have you come across any, concerns with regard to alarming levels with regard to greenwashing, and anything to be done, any observations with regard to Sri Lanka? Greenwashing is primarily to say that something is environmentally friendly, but in an unethical way. You say it's green, but it's not green. So that's the term greenwashing is all about. Have you come across the study, during your study, South Asia is famous for this particular aspect? That's number one. Number two, specifically to Sri Lanka. And number three, what would be the way out for us, not the South Asian region? Thank you.
Thank you again. So we actually did not go through that greenwashing concept. But however, we actually calculated another index called Green Logistic Index. So it is not actually available index. We could be able to calculate it based on empirical evidences and past researches. So in that, we actually focus on carbon emission and all. But like you said, it's not covering that greenwashing concept. So even that concepts are in generally caring about the emission, but not about the way you think. So in our study, we have not covered that part. It's actually a good research topic for the next study for us. Thank you.
Good evening to you all. I'm Major Danush Kedri Singh, student officer in the logistics staff course, Army School of Logistics. I'm here. During your presentation, you have discussed about the sustainable practices in the South Asian context. So we being the South Asian country, we also maintain LPI is very low, as everyone know. So we being the country, and what is the role play of our government and the private sector as per your analysis and as per your recommendation? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much again for the question. So actually, when it comes to LPI, you all know that it is calculated based on several criteria or scenarios. So if we want to enhance our LPI, we should focus more on investments. Investments in the sense we have to focus more on infrastructures. So if we take the private sector, they can't do it alone. That's why government is here. If government take necessary actions to improve or enhance the infrastructures, so they can actually enhance our performance indexes as well. You know, in each and every year, government is allocating thousands of rupees, billions of rupees for several infrastructure projects. Sometimes they are for constructing roads, no value addition after that. But there may be some investment projects that can be used to enhance logistic performance or other performances rather than developing normal roads. So the government has a role to choose wisely what are the main projects that they should invest, because the private sector can't do this. So those investments are huge. For an example, it's a very simple example. If the government wants to develop this Trincomalee airport, the harbor, rather than investing on the Hambantota harbor on that days, so the output would have been more effective, because with less amount of money, they could have been having a new harbor. But unfortunately, we are too late for that. So in my point of view, when government is choosing kind of investment projects, they need to have a proper analysis and invest their limited funds for respective investments. So if the government invests money correctly, so then we can improve our logistic performance indexes and then our trade. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any more questions, please? So since there is no questions from the audience and online, I'd like to sum up the two papers, please, the presenter. As global trade intensifies, the ability of nations to compete hinges just not on economic policy, but also on the efficiency and sustainability of their logistic networks. This study offers a compelling comparative analysis of how logistics performance and green logistic practices shape the export volume across South Asia. The two presenters who conducted the first present topic introduced an innovative green logistic performance applying an augmented gravity model to assess the bilateral trade flows of the South Asia. And during their research, they have come into a conclusion of the better logistic performance, both in exporting and importing nations, positively impacts trade volume. The green logistic efforts by exporting countries will enhance their exports. This study shows that even stricter green logistics in importing countries can act as a trade barrier also. And a balanced approach to improving both traditional and green logistics is essential for maximizing South Asia's trade potential. Further, this study reminds us that sustainable development and competitive trade are not mutually exclusive. They must go hand in hand as South Asia seeks to boost its global trade footprint. And when I come to the second topic, Lieutenant Veeratna has shown us the balancing environment responsibility with economic viability and social equity in Sri Lanka's sustainable logistic practices. He has emphasized the social sustainability have been commendable progress, but the economical sustainability remains underdeveloped. He then pointed out the economic conflicts and how the sector struggle with the financial resilience. The key message from the second topic for Sri Lanka's logistics sector to be truly sustainable, it must not only protect the environment and support social equity, but also ensure long-term economic viability. Since we have come to the end of the third session, I would like to make a small comment that during this research highlights a core principle we in the defense sector understand well, that logistics in the lifeline of operational success, whether in military strategy or economic engagement. As South Asia grapples with environmental vulnerabilities and regional competition, the need to establish a secure, efficient and sustainable logistic network is more pressing than ever for the armed forces. This presents an opportunity to lead by example, leveraging the military logistic capabilities, infrastructure and innovation to support both the national economy, objectives and regional stability. Let us reflect on these findings as we engage in our discussions today and reaffirm the role of logistics not just as a strategic function, but as a realistic enabler of both defense and development. So I would like to thank the audience for their contribution, and I would like to commend the presenters for their hard work and dedication. And finally, I would like to thank the Commandant of Naval Maritime Academy, the Senior Course Coordinator of Long Logistic Management Course 9, and the student officers of the Long Logistic Course 9 for inviting us for this logistic conference. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me express my gratitude to Commodore Prashant Maso for moderating the third session and to the three distinguished speakers for their insightful and valuable research presentations. Ladies and gentlemen, may I now request Commander Eastern Naval Area, Rear Admiral Ravindra Tisera, accompanied by Senior Course Coordinator of Long Logistics Management Course, Commander Ashoka Senadira, to present mementos to the resource personnel for conducting a productive session. I kindly invite Commodore Prashant Maso to accept the memento. Co-author of 6th paper, Mr. Pasindu Desanaika. Co-author of 6th paper, Ms. Amalka Indomini. And the speaker of 7th paper, Lieutenant Commander Manoj Veeraratna. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the third and the final session of the Logistics Conference 2025. May I now have the honor of inviting Director General Budget and Finance, Rear Admiral Manjula Desanaika, for the concluding remarks of today's Logistics Conference 2025. Over to you, sir.
Rear Admiral Dhammika Kumara, Vice Chancellor of the Kothalavala Defence University, retired Director Generals of the Logistics Branch, Director General who are presenting from the NHQ, foreign dignitary Commodore Adil Qureshi from Pakistan Navy, Command Eastern Naval Area, the Commandant Naval and Maritime Academy, the Director General Logistics of the Sri Lanka Air Force, the Commandant Logistics School of Sri Lanka Army, the Commandant Sri Lanka Air Force Academy China Bay, flag rank officers, distinguished academic scholars from General Sir John Kothalavala Defence University and other universities, course participants of the LLMC course number 9, officers, ladies and gentlemen, very pleasant good evening to all of you. As we drew the curtains on the 7th editions of the Logistics Conference 2025, organized by the 9th LLMC under the timely and compelling theme, Leverage Adaptive Logistics in Building Resilient Supply Chains in a volatile global economy. It is with deep sense of gratitude and accomplishment that I deliver the concluding remarks for this impactful and thought-provoking gathering. At the very outset, we were honored to have warm welcome address delivered by the Commandant Naval and Maritime Academy, setting the tone for the discussion that followed. This was seamlessly followed by opening remarks from the Director General Logistics, Rear Admiral Ruan Kalubowila. Those insights reaffirms the history of the logistics and the importance of the adaptive logistics in our current global context. The formal inauguration by the Commander of the Navy added immense value to our proceedings as his words capture the strategic importance of resilient supply chain from both military and commercial perspective. One of the most anticipated and intellectually stimulating moments of the event were the keynotes address by the Professor Ravi Disanayake. His contribution was undoubtedly the intellectual highlights of this conference. With his deep expertise and visionary perspective, he unpacked the complexities of adaptive logistics in today's volatile global setting, leaving us with valuable insights and inspiring thoughts. His address will remain a reference point of our future strategies and the discussions. Throughout the day, we were privileged to witness 3 intellectually enriching sessions, each bringing vital concepts of modern logistics. Dr. U.G. Rajapaksa, currently serving as the head of the Department of the Management and Finance, General Sir John Kotalawala Defense University, conducted the inaugural sessions on the topic Digital Transformation in Supply Chains, Leveraging Technology for Agility and Efficiency. He, along with all the presenters, delivered into the crucial role of emerging technologies ranging from AI and automation to data analytical blockchain. They highlighted how digitization is no longer a luxury, but necessary in achieving supply chain visibility, responsiveness, and overall operational excellence. Mrs. Buddhini Amaratunga, a senior lecturer in the Department of Business Management at Wayamba University of Sri Lanka, delivered the second session of the program focusing on risk management and crisis response, building resilience to global and local market fluctuations. In this session, we explore how uncertainty from pandemics to geopolitics, tensions, and economic disruptions continues to challenge the global logistics. The presenters offered actionable strategies and case studies showcasing how supply chains can be adapted to absorb shocks, recover rapidly, and continue to deliver value despite turmoil. Commodore T.P. Maso, the Director, Naval Foreign Procurement of Sri Lanka Navy, delivered the final session of the program focusing on sustainable logistics practices incorporating environmental responsibility into the supply chain. This session provides a sobering reminder of our environmental responsibilities. It also opened a vibrant dialogue on how green logistics, circular economy principles, and sustainable procurement are essential to future-proof our supply chains and contribution to substantial development goals. Across these 3 sessions, we witnessed the presentation of 7 high-quality research papers that brought both academic rigor and the real-world applicability to the table. The depth of knowledge, practical insights, and the proactive thinking perspective presented by our speakers are testament to the growing expertise in the field of logistics and supply chain management. As we concluded, let us take a moment to reflect on the broader message this conference has conveyed, that adaptability, resilience, and responsibility are the cornerstones of the modern logistics. Whether through embracing technology, preparing for crisis, or committing to sustainability, we are collectively shaping supply chains and cannot only survive but thrive in the face volatility. I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to the keynote speaker, all paper presenters, and participants for making this event a resounding success. Your contributions have not only enriched our understanding, but have also sparked new ideas and collaborations that will continue beyond today. Last but not the least, let us carry forward the insights gained, the network formed, and the momentum built here. Let us remain committed to innovation, resilience, and sustainable practice as we navigate the ever-evolving landscape of a global logistics. Thank you, and I wish you all the safe travels and continued success in your professional endeavors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the end of Logistics Conference 2025. Leveraging adaptive logistics in building resilient supply chains in a volatile global economy. May I now take this opportunity to invite Student Officer of Long Logistics Management Course number 9, Lieutenant Commander Lahiru Wadisinghe, to deliver the vote of thanks. Over to you, sir.
Vice Chancellor of General Sir John Kothawala Defence University, Director Generals from Naval Headquarters, Retired Director Generals of the Logistics Branch, the Commandant, Naval and Maritime Academy, Foreign Dignitary, the Director of Logistics, Personnel and Planning of the Sri Lanka Air Force, Flag Rank Officers, moderators of today's conference, Directing Staff of the Naval and Maritime Academy, course participants of the Long Logistics Management Course number 9, representatives of all the universities, distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to stand before you today as a course participant of the Long Logistics Management Course number 9 to deliver the vote of thanks at the conclusion of this prestigious logistics conference. This conference marks the culmination of our year-long journey at the Naval and Maritime Academy, which leads to the conferment of the Master of Business Administration in Logistics Management by the General Sir John Kothawala Defence University. Organized by the course participants of the LLMC number 9, this conference has brought together representatives from logistics institutes, universities, government institutions, and defense forces. First and foremost, on behalf of the Commandant, Naval and Maritime Academy, the directing staff, and the administrative staff, I would like to express our deepest gratitude to the Commander of the Sri Lanka Navy, Vice Admiral Kanchana Banagoda, for gracing this occasion as the chief guest. I would like to extend our sincere thanks to Professor Ravi Disanayaka for sharing invaluable thoughts across this esteemed gathering as the keynote speaker of today's conference. Our heartfelt appreciation goes to all the session moderators, paper presenters, for their invaluable contribution to making this event a success. Special thanks goes to the Director General Logistics, Rear Admiral Ruwan Kalubowila, for delivering inspiring opening remarks. Also, Director General Budget and Finance, Rear Admiral Manjula Disanayaka, for unfolding the insightful concluding remarks. Your intellectual contributions have significantly enriched this conference. Further, my sincere appreciation goes to the Vice Chancellor, General Sir John Kothawala Defence University, the intellectuals and representatives of all the universities. Many of you traveled long distance to be here, recognizing the importance of our endeavors. Your presence is truly inspiring and contributes greatly to the success of this conference. We are also deeply grateful for the Director Generals, retired Director Generals, and distinguished invitees representing Naval Headquarters and other naval commands. Your participation and active contribution are invaluable. At the same time, my sincere thanks goes to the Director of Logistics, Personnel and Planning of the Sri Lanka Air Force, also the Commandant Logistics School of Sri Lanka Army, and all the officers of sister services for being present here today to witness this conference. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the unwavering efforts of the Commander, Eastern Naval Area, and his staff. Their support in numerous ways have been instrumental in making this event a grand success. Special recognition is due for the Commandant, commanding officers officers in charge of all schools, directing staff, administrative staff, officers, and sailors of the Naval and Maritime Academy. Your tireless efforts in organizing this logistics conference are commendable. Last but not least, I would like to convey my deepest gratitude to all the course participants of the Long Logistics Management course number 9 for their unwavering commitment for ensuring the event's success. We wish you and your families continued success and good health. Thank you and have a pleasant day.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to depart after the paramount forum of collaboration and insight amongst the participants and exchange of views and ideas from intellectuals who came from all over the country and South Asian region to participate in this conference. I would like to take this opportunity to request you to pass on to your heads of the organizations that the next logistics conference will be held in the year of 2026. And you may please reserve a slot in your calendar to revisit this historic city of Trincomalee. Ladies and gentlemen, hereby the Logistics Conference 2025 has adjourned.
Bon voyage, Aibowan.